Well, good evening. Welcome back to Center Stage at Beth Israel. I'm so honored to have as my guest today my friend and my colleague and a truly honorable person, James Levin. Welcome.
Well, I'm very flattered. Thank you for inviting me, Peter.
So we're going to talk about the family, the name, all the amazing things that you've accomplished, and then you can tell us what's next. How's that? Tell us where the idea came to take 65th in Detroit and create Gordon Square and Cleveland Public Theater. How did that happen?
Well, that's a short question and a long answer.
Okay.
I don't know how far back I should go, but I started doing community theater as an actor while I was at law school at Case. And when I always had this idea that I was going to do something as a social activist, and then I don't know what happened in law school, but my social activism shifted from law to theater. So I went to New York City, now having been significantly bitten by that theater bug, and I wanted to be an actor, not at Broadway, not for any TV shows or anything like that. But there was a specific theater I wanted to get involved in. It was called Cafe La Mama. Now, if you're not a theater person, you would never hear of this theater. But La Mama at the time was known, and this is the late 70s, La Mama was known for its kind of social impact hitting theater. And they would work with actors and theater directors and writers from all over the world. And they would never do anything commercial. It was always plays that would be about social inequality, homelessness, gay lesbian issues, this kind of thing. And a lot of very well-known actors and playwrights have come out of La Mama. Sam Shepard, not the doctor that may or may not have murdered his wife.
Bay Village.
But the writer and actor Sam Shepard, Robert De Niro and Al Pacino. Wow. And Dustin Hoffman and Ellen Burstyn. Wow. All came out of La Mama. So that, to me, that was like where I wanted to play. That was my Yankee Stadium. And so I got to New York. I immediately got a job in the Garment District, which is a whole other story. Then I did get a couple small parts in some off Broadway theaters, but I was still not close to La Mama.
Are you a lawyer at this time?
I had taken the bar in Ohio,
yeah.
And I was actually studying for the bar in New York. And I told you it was a long answer.
That's okay. That's all right.
So my good friend, Steve Wexberg, who is a physician, he's a pediatrician now living in Pepper Pike, came to visit me in New York. And we were playing stickball in Greenwich Village. And very, very theatrically. I mean, I used to be able to throw hard, and he was a good ball player. So we had these dramatic stickball games in the playground in Greenwich Village. And this short individual comes up to us with an Italian accent and says, "What are you guys doing? What is this game you're playing?" And I said, "Where are you from?" He said he's from Italy. Well, I was angry at all Italians at the time because my good friend Valdo, who was an engineering student at Case, had taken my girlfriend from Case Law School.
So they're all
So I was angry at
that.
all Italians, and
Yeah.
I had no patience for any Italian people. I know that's very open-minded of me.
Yes.
So I said, I don't know, like, we're playing baseball, go, leave me alone. And so Steve and I went back to my little hovel on East 2nd Street between B and C. My rent at the time was $143, and I took the landlord to court for a violation of rent control, and the rent was restored to like $92. I won my first case in New York. $92 a month.
You probably haven't lost a case since, but go ahead.
I have. So anyway, we have dinner, which is probably like a tuna melt in those days, and we are walking around Soho and Chinatown because there was some kind of festival going on in Chinatown. and somebody's pulling on my shirt, and I turn around, and it's the same Italian guy, the same night. I mean, the chance of that happening in New York City are what? And he says, so I'm thinking, this is a little strange. So we start talking to him. I suspend my hatred of all Italians, and I'm talking to this individual, and he says that his brother is an actor, and his brother he's also a director, and he's doing a play at La Mama, and he's opening on Friday, and they need an actor. And so this is kind of insane. And he says, you got to come. I told my brother about you, and he wants to meet you. And his brother is serving coffee at a barista on McDougal Street in Greenwich Village. So I meet his brother. His name is Dario D'Ambrosi, and he hired me on the spot to take the small role at a play at La Mama. And then his company, which is called Il Gruppo Dada, and the joke was his name being Dario D'Ambrosi, he was Dada. A lot of people think Dada, which was an art movement in the early 20th century, kind of very surrealist based. It had nothing to do with the Dada art movement. It had to do with him, Dario D'Ambrosi, and I was Il Gruppo. The Gruppo was him and me. So we became a resident company at La Mama, which allowed us to do anything we wanted whenever we were ready, to have free and open rehearsal space at their facility on Great Jones Street. And that started me working at La Mama. And then after about 3 years there, due to some other personal things going on in my life, including my father was becoming ill at the time, I decided to come back to Cleveland, but I wanted to start a theater in the image of La Mama. And I was very, very fortunate. I was mentored by their executive director and founder, this black woman named Ellen Stewart. Now, if there was a pantheon of theater artists in New York City, of course, there would be Joseph Papp, there would be the Merrick brothers, but there would also be Ellen Stewart, who was a black woman founding a theater in a very male-oriented world in New York City. She founded it in, I think, 1959 or 1960. But she had mentored me. She kind of treated me as a kind of a protege. And so when I came back to Cleveland, I felt like I was really ready to go.
And how much time does it take to go from what the neighborhood looked like to what it became? How many years did that take?
Well, that's another story. But I had gotten a little press coming back saying that I was starting a new theater, and I got a call from Jeff Ramsey, who at the time was the assistant director of Detroit Shoreway, saying, do you want to see this space? We have this amazing space for you. And he showed me the Capitol Movie Theater.
Oh my gosh.
And I went into the Capitol Movie Theater, and it was because of the raked floor, the slanted floor, and a small proscenium stage. I said, this is not what I need. I need a black box with flexible seating and flexible possibility.
And at that point, the theater is not in very good shape, correct?
Well, that theater was a disaster. So I said no to that, although we did end up using it a little bit. And then I was just walking around Detroit Shoreway, because I had never been in that neighborhood before. And there was a kind of a chubby older man with white hair and a white beard sitting on a folding chair outside of 6415 Detroit Avenue. And I think I was in trial. I remember I was in a pinstripe suit, and he said, "Are you looking for the space?" And I said, yeah. And he said, well, I've been waiting for you. It turns out that he thought I was with Boy Scouts of America.
Oh my God.
But anyway, he showed me the space upstairs. No heat, no electric, the ceiling was falling down, no water, but it had 6,000 square feet of open, no pillars, of just open space with a domed ceiling, because it used to be an old dance hall for the Irish American Dance Club. And I instantly fell in love. I said, well, yeah, this is it. So we signed like a 5-year lease with a 5-year renewal, and the original rent was $100 a month.
So how does a person walk in and see that vision? Is that something that just was inside of you to say, yes, this is what I'm looking for? How does it happen?
It was just immediate. It truly was
Immediate.
instant. Because by that time, I had already walked around the area. And 65th and Detroit is one of the few corners in Cuyahoga County that all have pre-war buildings still standing
On all four corners?
on all four corners.
Wow.
There might be another one or two, but maybe not, in all of Cuyahoga County.
And you wanted that?
To me, they had that kind of authentic, old, urban culture.
Yeah.
We were also 5 minutes, maybe 10-minute drive to downtown. So it's very accessible to the so-called theater, wherever the theater-going audience might be.
Yeah.
Of course, not on the east side, which is where a lot of it lives. So I knew that this was really the space.
And how long did it take to go from, okay, we're going to take a 5-year and a 5-year lease to producing plays? A couple years?
Well, we moved in, we signed the lease. Lease went into effect on April 1st, 1984.
Oh my gosh.
And we were doing plays. We didn't have a license. We didn't have an occupancy permit until 2 or 3 years later. But we were doing plays, that spring.
Wow.
The first play we ever did was a Pinter play. It was a 2 or 3 person Pinter play that was directed by Bill Beck, who was a very fine local actor. And then we did a play called Star Wars: The Next Generation, which was a parody of the movie Star Wars that Linda Eisenstein and I wrote. And then, but I remember that we just had seating donated by Spaces Art Gallery because they had remodeled. And they were getting rid of their old chairs, so we took their old chairs. And then during the summer, the Vogue movie theater, which used to be on Van Aken and Warrensville, they were going down, and they asked me if we needed more seating. So I know this is a little off your question.
It's okay.
But at that time, I had started a criminal law practice. And a lot of my clients were from the South Side, and they all drove motorcycles. And a couple of them had access to a flatbed and box trucks. So we had a flatbed truck that was out in front of the Vogue movie theater on a Sunday, loaded it up like, 10 high, and they were all attached to each other. These are old, heavy chairs, much heavier than the ones in the shul here. And there was a loading dock, but to get to the loading dock, the truck had to go perpendicular to Detroit Avenue, meaning we stopped traffic around 11 or 12 o'clock at night on Detroit Avenue with no permit, no permission. I hadn't contacted anybody. And then I get a tap on my shoulder. It wasn't a little Italian man. It was Ray Pianca, who was the city councilman at the time,
yeah.
saying, not in the most polite language, like, who are you and what are you doing here? And in those days, I was a little more of a rebel and a little brash, and
Really?
I didn't contact the Detroit Shoreway. I didn't contact City Council. I mean, how did I know that the flatbed truck was going to block Detroit Avenue?
I get it.
Right. So we had to.
I would guess my friend Mr. Lesko was part of that group.
He was part of that
Yes,
group.
I'm sure he was. Figure I could- a name from the past. So we go from Cleveland Public Theater.
Yeah.
Did the theater begin the whole change of Gordon Square, do you
It
think?
did.
It did.
I think there's no question.
No question about it.
That, yeah.
And so when you drive through 65th in Detroit now, with the economic changeover, I hope somebody says, my gosh, this all started with James Levin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a lot of people involved, including the people at Detroit Shoreway. The Zone family was very involved.
A wonderful family.
Truly. And it was really even though I had a rough beginning in my relationship with the city councilman, Pianca and I became very, very close friends. And it was a collective effort, but CPT was certainly the first stake
Yeah.
out there of a renewal. And then I left CPT to the next generation in mid 2000s, and I founded or launched the Gordon Square Arts District as a formal organization, getting the Near West Theater involved, and Detroit Shoreway, which of course was the owner of the Capitol Movie Theater.
So where does Ingenuity Fest come from? Yes, another thing that you created. Where did that come from?
Well, when I was directing CPT, we had started several festivals, including an American Indian festival, which ended up involving Vernon Bellecourt and Russell Means and me representing the American Indian movement against Gateway.
Wow.
And the lawsuit allowing people to demonstrate against Chief Wahoo, which then resulted in the
Elimination.
the transformation of the mascot and then the name. And that was a huge group effort, but I was very involved in part of that, certainly. But anyway, so there was the American Indian Festival. I had done a sound and music festival as part of CPT. And then I read an article by Carolyn Jack in the Plain Dealer, who then called me and said, why isn't there like an arts festival in Cleveland?
So Jim, why would she called you? That says something in and of itself.
Well, I was kind of festival.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
We had a New Plays Festival. I mean, festivals and CPT had a lot of overlap. So I thought about it for a long time and decided where else does creativity lie in Cleveland aside from the artists? And the creativity, of course, lies with technology, with NASA, with the Cleveland Clinic, with bioenterprise. And so we came up with this idea of a festival of art and technology, Ingenuity. And I got a friend of mine who had, with me, started the Performance Art Festival at Cleveland Public Theater, a gentleman named Thomas Mulready, who is an excellent marketing guy. Got him involved very early on. And we were really the core that launched the Ingenuity Festival back in 2005.
And how many years did that run for?
No, Peter, it's still running.
It is still running? I didn't
It's still
know
running.
Wow.
I directed it from 2005 to 2011 or 12, and then I turned it over to the next generation. A woman named Emily Applebaum is directing it now, and she reinvented it. So instead of a festival that's happening downtown, she moved it to an area of Hamilton near 55th in a series of warehouses and empty factories
yes.
where it happens every year. And that allows them to, with some sort of familiarity, really explore and transform that space. But it's a very different event because we were getting large institutions like NASA, like the Cleveland Clinic involved, emphasizing the technology aspect. And also, the part of the idea was triggering and inviting people to rediscover downtown Cleveland. Now, if you remember downtown Cleveland 20 years ago, nobody was coming downtown. In fact, when I asked Frank Jackson if I could shut down Euclid Avenue for Ingenuity in 2005, he looked at me in a completely straight face and said, James, you could roll a bowling ball down Euclid Avenue and it wouldn't hit anything. I mean, you could shut down Euclid Avenue because nobody's going to notice. That's the mayor talking. He wasn't exactly our greatest cheerleader at the time.
Yeah.
And that being said, we placed Ingenuity in different locations downtown, and again, invited people to re-explore. East 4th Street this was before the renovation and the renewal of East 4th Street. Ingenuity showed people what East 4th Street could look like if it were fully developed, because we occupied every one of those storefronts.
Wow.
And had art and music in every one of them, and we really brought it to life. The Marin family should be one of the donors of Ingenuity. They own East 4th Street. Anyway, this is my.
So from there, I know there was a festival on Martin Luther King where you closed down a good-sized section.
Right.
I believe that was to honor all the different areas on
Right,
the street
Cleveland
itself.
World Festival that started in
World
2000. I think that was 2013 to 15, where we shut down MLK
Yeah.
and part of East Boulevard, highlighting all the cultural gardens every year, and that was a huge success.
So what's next on the festival, Cleveland?
Well, then I started something in Lorraine called Firefish,
Yes, you did, yes.
and that's still
On
going
Broadway.
on Broadway, and
Yeah.
that is still going on, and that started. I can't even remember. I think 2016 or 17. My family's originally from Lorraine. My paternal side is from Lorraine, so there was a kind of a going home aspect to that.
And certainly that was a part of Broadway that needed some invigoration, needed a little
And it's still
attention.
Yeah. And Lorraine still has like considerable, it's amazing potential in Lorraine, Ohio. And
Well, Mr. Spitzer had an idea. He was just about 10 years ahead of his time.
Spitzer had a great idea, and
Yeah.
the housing project that he created is beautiful now and
Yeah.
fully occupied.
He said, we're going to build a casino on the river and the lake. And it went down, and a couple of years later, there's casinos everywhere.
Yeah.
That would have invigorated Lorraine beyond anybody's comprehension.
Timing is everything. He certainly had that
Timing
idea and the
is
vision.
everything.
Right.
Yeah, and even and that's the point of all your public work, is that you find things that aren't there and create. That sounds like an actor. You create.
There's certainly an element of, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. The creative mind is what's, at least that part of your activity, is what's led you from going to New York to being what you are here today. The creative part of your mind.
But right now there is like really nothing on the horizon. I tried to renew the Cleveland World Festival.
Mm-hmm.
The Cleveland Cultural Garden Federation has a smaller event called One World Day that is still going on, and there might have been political pressure, but I reached out to the mayor saying I really wanted to renew that. Mm-hmm. If there was a concern about confusion between the two events, I said I would create an event that did not have the word world in it and did not have the word festival in it, and I would stay away from their month, which is August. But I could not get the support I needed from the mayor, from Mayor Bibb. So I'm really not, I don't have anything that I'm working on right now, and I miss it.
So tell us about your time at Worcester College.
Well, I had a great time. I was the director of the Center for Entrepreneurship at the College of Worcester from 2009 to 13. I taught two classes where I created the syllabus. One was on the nature of creativity, and the other was that was more of a right brain class, and the left brain class was the nuts and bolts of running a nonprofit. And it was a lot of fun. I had a classroom on purpose next to the dance studio. So whenever I felt like the kids weren't paying attention, we would go into the dance studio and I would just do some improvisational stuff to get everybody's juices moving. It was really a lot of fun. And at Worcester, as a third class was the creation of a festival.
Of course.
And we created something called the Worcester Jam, sponsored by Smuckers.
Of course.
At the county fairgrounds. And the Wayne County Fairgrounds was one of the oldest fairgrounds in the state of Ohio.
Is that right?
So we were there in late April for 2 days of creativity. So we had opera, where they normally sell pigs and goats, where they were showing off pumpkins and crops and stuff. We had a group of cellists. We had 16 cellists.
Oh my gosh.
And performing. And it was really, and we brought in some cloggers and some country music from the Amish community out there. It was really quite the event, the Worcester Jam.
So let's go back to your last name. Tell
Yeah.
us what the Levin family and Cleveland State University College of Urban Studies have in common?
Well, my Uncle Albert first either gave or sold Cleveland State a good chunk of their campus for a nominal amount of money. He was Albert Levin was a real estate entrepreneur. I wouldn't say on the same level of the Ratner family, but in the late 50s, they were at least in the same conversation. And he was a very generous man. And his wife, Maxine Levin, was also very much a community activist. She was involved in the First Women's Bank of Cleveland. I don't know if you're familiar with that. She was also involved with Four Chimneys, which was an organization helping people with mental health and mental disabilities, particularly women. She was truly a social activist. She was a Republican, but those were like way before Trump Republicans. I know you probably don't want to get there on this program,
It's okay.
but I'll try to. I can avoid that. But so he passed away in 1970, and she continued her activism and was very much dedicated to Cleveland State, and made a significant donation to create the College of Urban Studies. And my family is still very involved in supporting that institution. My cousin Morton and his wife Judy just made a very large donation, and I make a more modest one. But we've been very involved in that. College of Urban Studies is, as you know, it's one of the, if you can believe the U.S. News, certainly one of the top 5 in the United States annually. And there's still the Maxine G. Levin School of Urban Studies, and there's the Albert A. Levin Chair of the College of Urban Studies. So we're very involved with that. And now they have a student named Frank Levin, who is my son, and he's studying at the Levin College of Urban Studies. He tries to avoid expressing that in class because he says it's a little weird.
So you are undergraduate work was at Harvard.
No, I actually graduated from the University of Michigan.
Okay, and your law degree is?
From Case.
There's a lot of Harvard in your family, though.
There is a lot of Harvard in the family. Uncles, cousins, my son.
Cousins, a lot of doctors, a lot of very well-educated people, and it's from my knowledge of your family, which goes beyond you, through my sister to your cousins.
Right.
Everybody understands the idea of giving back and giving to the community, which is my segue to your legal work, which people need to know about. I think I wanted you here first for that, actually, because you cover an area that a lot of lawyers run from, and cover an area that probably will never catch up on. And that is those who can't afford to help themselves, and those who don't make good decisions, and doesn't mean they shouldn't have a first-rate lawyer.
Right.
So where, did that come along? Is that a parallel line? Or is that something that came around after law school, new? Where did it come from that, wait a minute, there's people out here who are not getting the representation they need?
Well, I want your audience to know that you have knowledge of this firsthand, because I'm constantly saying, Peter, help me with this one. Help me with this consumer. Help me with this person who's been ripped off. And you do. So I want to thank you for that. So LegalWorks, LegalWorks was probably born a long time ago. The seed of it was probably when I was a kid, you know. I mean, when I was growing up, my father was a lawyer. I grew up in Shaker Heights in a upper middle class neighborhood house.
Shaker Heights High School?
Shaker Heights High School.
At the top, when it was the high school, yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And the idea of giving back was something that I grew up with. I mean, I grew up in the 60s. So the idea of doing something as an activist and trying to make the world a little better, and being Jewish, and the whole idea of tikkun olam, I mean, that's part of who I am. like at birth or authentically. And being an activist and giving back was really the impulse to starting Cleveland Public Theater. And it also was the impulse to start LegalWorks. LegalWorks is a nonprofit that started over 10 years ago. It actually started when I was working on the Cleveland World Festival. Back in 2013, I was working with the Famicos Foundation, and Famicos is a CDC, a Community Development Corporation, one of the larger ones on the east side, covering St. Pierre, Superior, Huff, and Glenville. And its director is John Analifo. So at the time, I had a murder case. Talk about having like a bipolar kind of life. But I was working on a murder case of the homicide taking place on East 93rd between Miles and Kinsman, near a Sunoco station. There's a lot of commerce that happens at that Sunoco station that has nothing to do with the selling of gasoline, believe me.
And not much of it is credit card dealing.
There's no credit cards. Anyway, there was about 25 people that saw something happen. A young black man was shot in the back by Cleveland police. This isn't just like, liberal James Levin talking about how bad police are. It's not about that. But my client was indicted under the felony murder doctrine, saying that his companion was in the process of shooting somebody else, which I believe was a lie, and the police stopping him shot him in the back. So there were a lot of people that saw this, and the Sunoco station became like almost a second office. This is where I was interviewing witnesses.
Wow.
And 25 people were supposed to show up. The trial begins in front of Nancy McDonald. How many do you think show up?
Blessed memory.
Blessed memory.
How many people show up? 50.
No, of the 25 they were going to.
Zero.
A miracle happens where I get a mistrial.
Which means the trial starts all over again later on.
Trial abruptly stops, scheduled again for six or 8 weeks down the line. I go back to the Sunoco station, and this time I'm mad. And they say, "We're the Sam Hill." Maybe I didn't say Sam Hill.
Yeah.
We're you guys. You're all saying you're going to be out there to protect your brother, and you're going to show up. You're not going to let this happen, and nobody shows up. And what is going on here? And finally, I understood why. All 26 witnesses had an open warrant.
I knew you were going to say that, yeah.
And they were afraid that with an open warrant, they were going to walk into the building and the hand of Michael O'Malley was going to come and grab them and put them in jail, and they were going to disappear. Most of those warrants have to do with traffic, and I'm sure you know this as a prosecutor. Traffic warrants, open container, disorderly conduct, minor stuff that they could walk up to the window, show them ID, and they would be put on some docket 2 or 3 days later. Probably 22 out of the 26 were just plain ordinary warrants. They don't know that. They're with some justification. They have fear about dealing with the criminal justice system.
Absolutely right, sure.
So anyway, I talk about this with Anna Lefo at the Famicos Foundation, and I say, if this is something that's happening at 93rd in Kinsman, I'm sure it's happening in Huff and Glenville. I said, why don't you give me an office, and I'll have regular office hours. I'll come Saturday mornings for a few hours, and he said, sure. So we started advertising LegalWorks, Famicos, and it was an immediate response. Dozens of people started showing up. And when I was talking to them, I would get their record, and I would say, you have a poverty crime. You have a woman maybe has a welfare violation from 1996. I said, this is a 5th degree felony, at the time a 4th degree felony. Why don't you get this sealed or expunged? And they said, either they didn't know that you could get those things expunged,
Or they didn't have the $75.
or they went to a private lawyer, and the private lawyer wanted $1,000,
Yeah.
$1,500, $700, whatever it was. They didn't have it. So we set up this system where if they came out with $50 and signed the poverty affidavit, we would handle it. Wow. And if they don't have the $50, we would still do it. And that became very, very popular. And now we have 8 offices.
My gosh.
In city all in inner city neighborhoods. 4 of them are in Cleveland Public Libraries. We have a partnership with the public library. And we also work very closely with Cleveland Municipal Court Clerk's Office. They have a program called In the Neighborhood, where they will market like crazy, and they will set up in the Glenville Rec Center. They'll show up at the Word Church. They'll show up at Sagrada Familia, churches and neighborhood centers throughout the city, and they will enlist somebody from the food bank, somebody from probation, somebody from the BMV, and LegalWorks, and we'll bring 10 people there. A couple of lawyers and a whole flank of law students.
Wow.
And we will talk to maybe 100, 150 people in one day.
Wow.
And then we employ these kids and supervise their work. We write our own motions. And last year we sealed or expunged over 1,000 records.
Oh.
And we're on a track now to do even more. We did almost 175 just in January. So it's
And how many people do you think you've helped in the situations of minor criminal activity where they had nowhere else to turn? Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds,
Sure.
thousands and thousands.
Probably.
Anybody else in the city that you know of that has your commonality of effort for these kind of people?
Well, Legal Aid does a good job.
Okay.
And they course work with the Public Defender's Office. But as far as a private nonprofit, I don't know of any. I know of some organizations that will advise and link you up to somebody else, but we actually become their lawyer. We do the notice of appearance, and we're their lawyer. So we represent them from the point of contact to filing the motion until it's resolved. And as you know, in a lot of cases out in Berea, if somebody owes court costs or a fine or has an open warrant, they get denied. So when that happens, we don't consider that to be the end of the conversation. We consider that to be just the beginning of the conversation. So we will work with the client, work with the prosecutor's office, work with the court, get more time to get rid of those open warrants, to pay the costs and fines, and we'll represent them until it's expunged or sealed.
Have there been times where you've had a little brushback? Or has everybody just been as cooperative as you can imagine with all of this?
No, we get brushback all the time.
Tell us about that.
Well, I mean, there are some communities, some judges, who just think that, well, first of all, the state legislature recently opened up the sealing and expungement law where you can have unlimited felony 4s and 5s.
Which are the lowest level of the
lowest level, and just so your audience knows,
Yeah.
we're talking about no felony 1s or 2s, so no rapes, robberies, murders,
burglaries. Yeah.
We're talking about
assault, yeah.
primarily lower level drug offenses and lower level theft offenses. So somebody who has like welfare fraud, or somebody with a shoplifting, or somebody with possession or even trafficking a minor amount years ago can now get their record cleared up.
And the change, without that change in the expungement laws, think of all the people that wouldn't be able to get back in the workforce.
Correct. And the reason why, I mean, people ask me, why do you think the Ohio legislature is being so helpful here? And the Ohio legislature has passed fewer bills in 2023 than ever. They passed like 15 bills. But we don't need to talk about that right now. Sorry. Okay. So I think it's really a common inspiration to just get more people into the workforce. I mean, a lot of factories right now, we work closely with Magnet, which is an association of machine shops and factories, and large industries like Swagelok, and they don't have enough people. And they're well-paying factory jobs. They're looking for workers. So this puts more people back into the labor pool, because if you're looking for a job, the first thing that comes up with is either if you have an open warrant or you have a prior record, you're not going to be hired. So this is a way of allowing people to move forward in their life and not being defined by the worst thing that they've ever done.
And so there must be a lot of gratification with helping somebody, getting them on their feet, and then observing that, like everybody else, with a little bit of luck, they can go pretty far in their life.
Yeah, it's very, very gratifying.
Yeah, yeah.
And I get I get thank you notes, I get lasagna, I get brisket. It's funny, you
Yeah.
never know who's going to walk into your office with what. And it's very gratifying. I mean, some people walk out of that courtroom, to us it's just like, we did 6 on Friday, literally six in one morning in the Justice Center, 4 in Muni Court and 2 in Common Pleas Court. And so for us, it's like, okay, where do we go next? And I work very closely, by the way, with my young associate, Isaiah Pinckney, who's a wonderful attorney. I think, have you met him?
I met him.
He's a graduate from Case. He was my intern for 2 or 3 years.
I remember that.
Yeah, now he's a full associate, and he does a wonderful job. So anyway, so we forget about what it really means sometimes, because we're
Yes.
so in a hurry to get to the next one. But oftentimes people leave that courtroom and they're in tears because they had thought that they were going to go through life with, this smudge on their record and this taint. And they're concerned about how they're trying to set a good example now for their kids and their grandkids. But in the back of their mind is thinking, well, if they ever look me up, they're going to find out that I sold drugs
18 years ago.
20 years
Yeah.
ago. And they walk out, and what we can't overlook is not only are they getting a better job or better credit, better housing choices if they're in the CMHA, but the mental health aspect is huge. The fact that this onus is just gone from their life. And when they look in the mirror anymore, they don't have to see a criminal, somebody with a criminal past. And we kind of take that for granted, but we
Yes.
we shouldn't forget the mental health aspect is huge.
So for a long time, when I've talked to people who handle cases as a public defender, not a full-time public defender, one who takes a case now and then
Yeah.
and helps Joe out or helps Mary out, and I always try to impose upon them that they deserve the same level of legal assistance as the one hiring the best lawyers in town or the most expensive lawyers in town. So my question is, not just the services that your group provides to these people, but are they sometimes surprised that they get to win? That you were right? And that their trust level of the system may be at its lowest level, including the system of lawyers out there, let alone lawyers, prosecutors, judges, bailiffs, that all of a sudden somebody said, guess what? You won. I mean, that's an uphill battle a lot of times. But I think my overall question that I'm going way too long on is that, do you find that people are so distrustful of the system that that's the burden you got to face first?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely yes.
Yeah.
I'm working on an assigned murder case right now.
Tell them what it means to be on an assigned murder case.
I'm on a list that's provided to the county court judges that if they want to assign a criminal case, most of them go, I think 2/3 go to the public defender's office, but 1/3 go to private counsel.
And then you're paid by the county for the
And you're
work.
paid by the county or you're paid by the state of Ohio for taking on this case. Normally it's an amount significantly less than what you would be earning as if you were retained by somebody with funds.
And the defendant pays just about nothing,
The defendant does pay nothing.
pays nothing. And how many of these do you handle?
I probably have maybe 10 to 12 at any one
How
given
many
time.
murder cases have you handled in your lifetime?
Maybe a dozen, 12 to 15.
So go back to your story.
So I'm representing an individual now, and with a co-counsel named Scott Ramsey. Do you know Scott?
I don't know, Scott.
He's a very, very good criminal lawyer. And it's a juvenile, somebody who has just turned 18. Difficult case. And my client actually did not, I believe in his innocence. By
How
the way.
critical, but let's stop for a second.
Yeah.
Do you have to have that to be the lawyer? Believe in his innocence?
No.
Yeah.
No, you don't. Because if your guy is, actually, if your guy is clearly guilty, and now there's video everywhere of everything, it seems, that kind of makes it easier. I mean, if your guy is, on video committing an act, then your job becomes, how do I get the best deal I can?
Got it.
And if you can get out of a deal like that with somebody doing something really nefarious and horrible that takes another life, or almost takes another life, and you can get his years reduced for whatever mitigatory reasons, then you've done your job. See, you don't have to believe in his complete innocence. Your job might be to soften the blow.
But in this case, you believe in his innocence.
I do. And apparently he has some relatives with means, and the question for a while was, should I get private counsel, or should I just remain with who we have? And we've done a lot of work on this case. Been out to the scene, knocked on doors, talked to witnesses, trying to get his bond reduced right now. I've seen him in jail multiple times. And this is something where paid lawyers don't necessarily do. And you know this as well as I do, that a lot of people mail it in. And I'm not going to be...
Not you.
I don't want to diss the legal profession, because Cuyahoga County is blessed with some incredibly strong talent
Yes.
in the legal community, and has been during my whole career. And I've been really blessed, because I was one time, and still am a little bit, mentored by Jerry Messerman, who to me, he's like I call him Michelangelo. He is truly an artist, and I think like one of the best criminal lawyers, or of any kind of lawyer in the country. And I've had the privilege of working with him on a couple cases where he's looking over my shoulder and second guessing absolutely everything I do and making me almost have a nervous breakdown. But besides that,
Yeah.
It's been a great privilege to work with him. Anyway, so Cuyahoga County is blessed with great legal talent, but like in any profession, there are some people that don't want to take those extra steps, and so he, after a couple of visits, he said, my family checked on you and Scott Ramsey, and tell them what you're doing for me, and I just want you to know that I'm really glad that you're our attorneys, and
There you
there's no
go.
thinking anymore that we're going to go try
Yeah.
to hire anybody. And they don't have any money anyway.
So,
But-
in your career, the two different careers that we've talked about, isn't it fair to say you couldn't have been this good a lawyer without the artwork, and you couldn't have been good at your artwork if you weren't as good as a lawyer?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The
Yeah.
two passions have definitely informed and supported each other a great deal, and continue to. The theater was literally built by these guys on motorcycles and with a flatbed truck,
Yeah.
like Lesko,
Yeah.
who call
Yeah.
themselves the Brew Crew.
I get it. I know why. Yeah.
And so the Cleveland Public Theater has to be unique in the country as being literally built by people from the criminal community. And people would come to the theater and volunteer and help construct, build sets, work on the walls, the plumbing, the ceiling, the electricity, the heating system, in exchange for legal fees.
And the most important part now is to make sure the legacy continues. Because believe it or not, none of us practice law forever. Although I'm
Right.
sure I have a feeling you're going to try really hard. But is the system that you're developing, let's talk about it on both levels. On the legal level with LegalWorks, are you bringing along the next generation to try their best to have the level of care and community that you have?
Yes, I'm confident that that's going to happen. As I said, we work with both Cleveland State and Case. We groom these interns. They see us in action. I've seen them in action. They have a considerable sense of humanity, compassion,
Yeah.
pathos, and they're
Yeah.
smart. And I'm sure that LegalWorks is going to continue, and with people who will surpass me with their legal skills. I truly believe that. In fact, a couple people that came through our system became trial counsel for the ACLU. They're now working with Terry Gilbert.
Yeah.
Another is now a public defender in Lake County. Another is a staff attorney for one of the common pleas court judges downtown. And these are all people that whenever I need them for a clinic or for anything else, speed dial, that they're going to be there. And they will continue to be involved with LegalWorks. They're on our board right now, in fact.
And on the play side and the creativity side, that is something you're never going to stop thinking about. What project is next, is it?
Well, I feel like I'm not quite done with that. And,
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly where I'm going to
Yeah.
land. But CPT is now directed by Raymond Bobgin, who's an excellent director, a much more nuanced artist than I was ever, and it's in great hands. And he's also coming without the baggage. I might have ruffled a few feathers along the way in the corporate community. He has none of that baggage, and he's really been able to raise significantly more money for CPT than I did. And of course, the Gordon Square Arts District achieved its goal. I mean, they declared victory, and basically, I don't even know if the GCAD as an organization exists anymore. We had a 30, and then it grew to like a $45 million capital campaign.
Wow.
With the Capitol Movie Theater, which is, as you know, up and running. CPT, which has 4 buildings now, and they're all in great shape, way more developed than I was able to make happen. And Near West Theater actually built a new facility 10, 15 years ago on
Yes.
69th and Detroit.
Yes.
It's a beautiful facility, and they're in great hands. So, I mean, those are legacies that are going to live on and on and on. Ingenuity is in excellent hands with Emily Applebaum. Firefish with the younger people in the Lorraine community. The Cleveland World Festival, it's a sensitive spot because of it's something that I felt we were potential that we were on the verge of realizing. And my vision of MLK is that from May through October, it's open every Sunday, or at least every other Sunday. You shut it down, you bring out vendors from the community, you rent bicycles, you have people going back and forth, you utilize those gardens, not one day a year, but every Sunday throughout the year. And then you have specialty things happening throughout May through October. And what a time in this era of hate and ignorance and distrust to bring something out where we have easy access to explore other countries' cultures. I mean, it seems like there's a huge need for it, and it's potential that just hasn't been realized. It's something I would like to revisit if I could. But anyway, that's on the vine waiting to happen. And LegalWorks will definitely continue with this excellent core of younger people that are, they're true believers, and I think they're going to continue it for sure.
So I've asked this question to a lot of people that have sat here, different times in their professional and personal career. Do you ever sit down and think, boy, I've come a long ways from that little teeny theater over in Greenwich Village. Done pretty good here. Or do you need me to tell you that more than once, like I've always told you?
Yeah.
You've laid a pretty good foundation in this community.
Well, thank you, Peter. I don't really sit around, thinking about that.
Yeah.
But I did go back to CPT a couple weeks ago for the 25th anniversary of the Whitehaven production. I created something, 25 years ago, a collaboration between CPT and the Whitehaven, which is a in-house treatment center for men and women in addiction, creating a play based on their experience of addiction and recovery. And that is going on for 25 years, where they open at CPT and then tour to drug treatment centers, to juvenile detention centers, inner city churches. Of all the things at CPT, that's the one thing that I feel like I missed the most being involved in.
Yeah.
And that's obviously continuing. So it was very heartening to see this 25 years later with an excellent production and a full house and these men and women pouring out their hearts, and it felt very heartening.
Well, I want to thank you for coming in. I think my purpose in inviting you was to share what I knew. I've learned so much more than what I thought I knew. and you've given your life the way your forefathers would have wanted you to do, what they would have hoped you've done,
I hope so.
and you've continued the Levin name in an extraordinary way, and we're all thankful more than you know for the work you do.
Well, thank you, Peter, but I want to thank you for the work you do. You're a wonderful attorney. You help the poor and the voiceless as well. Your monthly letters are inspiring. This program, I'm sure, means a lot to many people, and I'm now a devotee.
Well, thank you.
And I want to thank you for everything you do for the community.
And thank you all for watching. Until next time, this is Center Stage at the great Beth Israel, the West Temple. Good night.